Respectfully acknowledge our distinguished guests. The Central Bank of Belize's Chairman, Mr. Sidney Campbell, Governor Karim Michael, Deputy Governor Hollis Parham, Manager of Supervision Department, Mrs. Diane Gongora, and representatives from the Credit Bureau, CRIF Information Services Belize Limited, Mr. Enrico Caruso, and Mr. David Mayo. Welcome. And a warm welcome as well to the Central Bank of Belize's management, members of the press, and representatives from the financial sector gathered here today. Today's agenda will include a keynote address by Governor Michael, which will be covering the economic rationale and the safeguards behind this important initiative. This will be followed by a presentation by CRIF, who will walk us through how the Credit Bureau works and the roadmap for its implementation. We will then open the floor for questions from the media. Lastly, there will be a closing from our manager of the Supervision Department. Many of you here may recall Governor Michael's introduction to this initiative in Central Bank's press briefing late 2024. The credit reporting system is the result of a long-term collaborative effort to enhance credit transparency and financial inclusion in Belize. Initiated regionally in the Caribbean in 2014, with support from the World Bank's Financial Finance Corporation, the Central Bank of Belize commenced the development of the CRS through policy dialogue, legal reforms, and technical implementation. While suspended for some time, the initiative regained momentum in 2019, leading to the enactment of the Credit Reporting Act in 2023. Subsequently, through a rigorous and extensive selection process, CRIF was licensed as Belize's first credit bureau through its local subsidiary in May 2025. As we prepare to launch the CRS, this milestone marks the beginning of a new chapter, empowering Belizeans with fairer access to credit and strengthening the resilience of our financial sector. Against this backdrop, it is my privilege to invite our Governor, Karim Michael, to speak further on the economic rationale and the safeguards underpinning this important initiative. Mr. Michael.
Thank you, Keja, for, I think this is your first attempt at being moderator. So far, so good, except for the little slip on Belize Bank. Not that Belize Bank is on our mind. No. Shameless promotion, Mr. Alario. Protocol has been established. Again, welcome to our partners from afar. I think this, again, is a defining moment in our financial landscape. As usual, we start here. The central bank, again, we carry out a twin mandate. That mandate is, again, to safeguard our monetary stability by protecting what is sacrosanct to us, which is exchange rate. Again, this provides a little shield when it comes to price effects within our economy. And secondly, to ensure financial stability through effective regulation and development of the financial system. These core functions are not just about the present. They're about laying the groundwork for a stronger, more inclusive future. Why credit reporting matters? It is within this framework that we have pursued the establishment of a credit reporting system. This initiative directly supports our strategic vision, which are, one, to support the development of a stable financial system, to promote financial inclusion, and to expand access to finance for all Belizeans. After years of preparation and hard work, you would have heard Keja saying from 2014, We are proud to launch Belize's credit reporting system. Credit reporting systems are known worldwide as essential components of sound financial architecture, as there's a positive correlation between financial development and economic growth. Where comprehensive credit infrastructures exist, the cost of lending decreases, more people gain access to finance, and financial inclusion expands. In simple terms, when information about borrowers is reliable and readily available, credit becomes less risky, more affordable, and more widely distributed. As such, credit reporting system depends on the quality and reliability of the data it receives. The success of Belize's credit reporting system relies on the active participation of credit information providers, or CIPs, who are the data contributors to our system. Mandatory providers include our banks, credit unions, other licensed financial institutions, particularly the money lenders. Perry, you see how important you are to this working. They are legally required to submit accurate and timely credit information. In addition to these, the system allows for non-mandatory CIPs, such as utility companies, telecommunication providers, insurance companies, and other credit granting entities. These entities, other non-mandatory CIPs, will participate on a voluntary basis. Their inclusion will further enhance the completeness of the data in the system. So what do we promise with this introduction of a credit reporting system? A key barrier to access in Belize has long been the lack of information, what we call information asymmetry. Differentiating between the creditworthiness of clients becomes very difficult when credit reports are lacking. In other words, without a way to distinguish between borrowers, lenders hesitate to extend loans. To compensate, they raise interest rates, ask for excessive collateral, and deny credit altogether. There's a bit of discriminatory lending practice also involved in this. Our credit reporting system addresses this imbalance by providing transparent, standardized credit histories. It helps lenders make better decisions, reduce the cost of borrowing, and opens the door for more Belizeans to participate in the formal financial system. The benefits are also significant for micro, small, and medium enterprises. These businesses are the backbone of our economy, but they often face challenges in obtaining credit. With the CRS, even small enterprises can build what is known as reputational collateral, a financial track record that substitutes for physical collateral. This is important because individuals and MSMEs often lack significant fixed assets that are formally recognized as usable collateral. For Belize, this means more entrepreneurs will have the chance to innovate, grow, and create jobs. At a national level, or on a national level, the advantages are clear. Lenders gain confidence, loan defaults decrease, and the entire financial sector becomes more resilient. Consumers, especially women, this has to be stressed, first-time borrowers and the unbanked gain new opportunities. In the previous slide, you would have seen an enormous figure of 30% of Belizeans remaining unbanked. This is what we hope as one of the primary benefits of this credit reporting system, that we're bringing more people within the official financial sector. So it brings more people into the formal financial system, ensuring that credit is available to many. And as credit flows more efficiently through the economy, investment and growth are stimulated. Now, concerns always surround about how you're going to protect my data. As a regulator, the central bank has put in place a strong legal and supervisory framework for credit reporting. This framework outlines clear rules for data for what data can be collected and shared. Secondly, strict security obligations for safeguarding personal information. And thirdly, mechanisms for correcting errors and protecting consumer rights. And while the central bank continues to embrace new technologies and modern regulatory approaches, I assure you that we are committed to ensuring this system operates with fairness, accuracy, and transparency. Consumer protection is not optional. It is legal and an ethical obligation. That protection extends to empowering consumers themselves. Under the Credit Reporting Act, every individual has the right to access and verify the information that the credit bureau holds about them. Each consumer is entitled to obtain one free credit report every year, ensuring transparency and giving consumers the opportunity to understand and correct their financial information if needed. In closing, this is a transformative financial era for Belize, and the central bank is leading the charge through progressive initiatives, collaborative partnerships, and sustained regulatory support. We have been pushing a lot on the regulatory side through various amendments and the issuance of new acts and legislations, and also strongly accelerating the pace of technological adoption. But for the system to succeed, citizens must also be financially aware and empowered. This is not a one-time campaign, but an ongoing commitment shared by the central bank, financial institutions, and civil society. I wish to acknowledge the valuable partnership of CRIF, whose expertise and collaboration have been integral in operationalizing the credit reporting system. I call on all Belizeans to embrace the change, to build their reputational collateral, and to learn, engage, and ask questions as we move forward. We at the Central Bank remain steadfast in our role to safeguard financial stability, to foster financial inclusion, and to serve the people of Belize. I thank you.
Thank you, Governor, for that comprehensive presentation. We now have the pleasure of hearing from our partner and licensed credit bureau operator, CRIF, who will explain how the system functions in practice and the roadmap ahead for the CRS. Please welcome Mr. Davide Mayo, and we have Mr. Enrico as well.
Good morning, everybody. Short presentation, we'll try to touch base to the main concepts around the Credit Bureau initiative and around CRIF, to introduce a little bit for those of you that didn't get in touch with us so far. So basically, CRIF started the business in 1998. So we are talking about a period in which, 1989, a period in which the Credit Bureau was not at all known in Italy. And we started from there. And actually, at that period in time, we were just building up a regional credit bureau, which went to the national stage after 1 year. And then we started our evolution from that moment on. But as a matter of fact, our mission is to serve with innovative solutions, comprehensive, compliant solutions, the unserved, and also to grant the served individuals and SMEs the possibility to access credit in a fair way and to abide, let's say, the golden rule of responsible lending and borrowing. I was talking about the fact that we started more than 36 years ago. And we went international only in 2000, so after more or less 11 years from the activity started. And we developed a number of credit bureaus on a global scale, but CRIF, as a matter of fact, today is not at all only a credit bureau company. It is a comprehensive credit management company, which is driving also the innovation the governor was talking about, a very key moment for Belize, but it is a key moment for the financial industry overall, which is actually touching base with the digital world. And actually, CRIF is working intensively in order to combine the activity which is aimed at protecting individuals and SMEs at the same time, lenders, from the digital world, because actually that's quite confused and hectic period in which it's not that clear where the industry is moving on. And we are trying to keep stable progress in that respect in order to provide also solutions over the years. What we're bringing to Belize. If you see the map, you see that we are in lots of countries around the world with the credit bureau activity only. Then we are serving banks in 57 different countries on a global scale and lenders in general. But as far as the credit bureau is concerned, this is what you see is actually the sort of experience that we are managing. And actually, what we learned to do was to transfer the experience from one country to another in order to enhance, if it was possible, the new country which was starting the adventure of the credit bureau with the experience coming from other countries and trying to adapt as much as possible. So we will be, in a nutshell, Belizean in Belize, as well as we are Italian in Italy or Vietnamese in Vietnam. We are trying to adapt as much as possible, and the solution itself will do this sort of role. But what we learned over time is also that you might be surprised, but even countries which are, I don't know, if we consider Philippines and Belize, what do they have in common? Much more than what you think. Because as a matter of fact, out of the 100% of the number of factors that we must consider when we open up a credit bureau in terms of adaptation, 85% is human being. And that's actually something that is correlated to the number of tools that we are creating, like core layers, wherever we go. All the rest, and don't misunderstand me, that's a key aspect. That 15% is language, culture, credit culture, legislation, and a number of things that you can only find out in that country. So that's a sort of journey we have to start from today. So that's a new journey for all of us. Learning about you, about your culture. We already started having meetings one-to-one in order to understand better how to serve you in a way which is suitable for the attitude and the culture of the country itself. What is a credit bureau? As a matter of fact, following the keywords that the governor used, stability, growth, and I would say the two of them are connected to one word which is key, trust. The credit bureau is building trust. As a matter of fact, what we are working on is the possibility to create a database which will be allowing SMEs and individuals to access with trust their own credit report in order to access credit also for the unserved ones, and to be able from that moment on to monitor their activity in order to grant them the possibility to continue and to build up their credit reputation. You might be surprised, but on a global scale, 95% of the population is reliable, is worth trusting. So the point is that the 5% of the population, which is not included in the idea of trust, can create issues to all the rest of the population. So our role is not to exclude anybody, but to give information to allow you all to make informed decisions. Therefore, to have a trust in the activity you're building up, and also in serving your own clients. On the other side, the borrowers will be trusting the idea that you're granting credit at a different price. You're including them financially if they are not yet included. So this is something that will be, once again, stability and growth granted by trust. If we go to the pillars of the credit bureau, that's kind of common sense in terms of literature of credit bureaus. Data sharing. The credit bureau, in a nutshell, is a data sharing system. The exchange of information between CIPs and actually the credit bureau will be done in a way, and the governor was mentioning that, in which the quality will be considered one of the key aspects. For you to create trust, of course, on one side and the other, we are right in the middle between borrowers and lenders. The level of quality to grant good information for the lenders and good information for the borrowers will be key. And this will be protecting both of you, lenders and borrowers. So it is important to have the vision about the fact that the quality will be a key aspect of a credit bureau project. The stability can be granted only when the infrastructures that are building up the financial world are relying on good data. So the very old principle, garbage in, garbage out, is always there. Usage purpose. The credit bureau is not meant to be a marketing tool. It's meant to serve individuals and lenders in general to have a fair and trusted relationship. And once again, the very good point in this respect is that when we talk about the contribution of data, the third pillar, the reciprocity principle, is one of the key aspects that has to be understood. Once again, it's the beginning of a journey. So when we are meeting all of you talking about the contribution, I see that the concerns are more or less the same. I haven't got the full set of data as of day one. How can we do? How can we manage? It's a journey. We will be here to assist you. So at the beginning, of course, there will be a bit of lack of information because we are creating a new standard in the market. And it's normal that the standard, not being present yet, has to be reached out of a bit of activity from your side and from our side. But there will be a level of cooperation in which we will be helping you to run this process and to drive this journey. What about the security? Because actually one of the points that the governor was touching also, it's a very important point, is the possibility to manage, but that's for you as an asset manager, because your portfolio of clients is your asset, and for the individuals, because their data are considered to be their own asset. Ultimately, the owner of data is the individual or the SME who's coming to you and applying for credit and granting you data in order to be provided to the credit bureau. So in this respect, there is a need of protecting your patrimony as lenders and actually the patrimony of the individuals and SMEs which are providing data. In this respect, the security is an obsession for us. I guess that even without saying, we know that data breach in the data industry are, I don't want to say a daily topic, but a daily concern indeed. And for us, it's an obsession. The credit bureaus in general are looking at security of data in a different way as opposed to others. We're not a social media. We're not a big brother. We are actually protecting both lenders and borrowers. And therefore, for us, the security is one of the key aspects we have to work on. And we're investing a lot of money. There is a good bunch of people on a global scale for CRIF working on this activity. And I can assure you that, the top level of security is granted as far as the credit bureau is concerned. when we go through the idea, before commenting, we were not commenting the details of the credit reports. This is just a sample. But going through the idea of looking at what a credit report is and what is the basic of the system that we're building up, because this is only the beginning of the journey. Once again, the credit report is today, for a mature credit bureau, considered to be nothing, because they don't even look at that. They consider the scoring system, they consider the parameters that we are delivering, the variables, they are including the variables in their own systems, and they are creating a level of complexity and sophistication that is not possible as of today, starting the first day of the journey with you. Therefore, we have to concern about the fact that this is only the beginning of a long journey. Our presence here will not be aimed at building up a database. We will be evolving together with you, and once again, towards the key words that the governor was mentioning, stability and growth. If we want to look at a sort of breakdown of the credit report in order to understand exactly what is a credit report made of, we can look at the score, which is a synthetic indicator, and this will be coming immediately after we will launch the operations. After all of you contributed data, we will build up a score, which will be an objective indicator for all of you, despite the credit initiatives and the credit activity you're doing and the credit policies you're doing. If I am good at the credit bureau level, it means that I'm at the systemic level considered to be a good payer. And the same sort of score will be valid for all of you, despite the internal evaluation. So we will give you an objective measurement of the creditworthiness of an individual, and that's a score. Then we can talk about evolution later on, but there are a lot of different kind of tools that we will introduce over time. The past you, negative information, basically registering the credit history of an individual makes you possible also to understand how to manage your credit appetite. If you're going to be more aggressive or less aggressive, more conservative and more risk adverse. In this respect, the exposure is telling you which is the level of indebtedness the individual or the SMEs has got, and is giving you a measure of how it is possible to grant additional credit to that individual. Of course, you're based on declaration, judgmental approach. So vast majority of you now ask the individual to produce salary documents and something like that. You will never find this information in the credit bureau because those are considered to be not official. There is the possibility, of course, to introduce additional data sources, and that's why you see extensions. The credit bureau is not a closed system. It's also allowing the possibility to access additional public databases, which will make an additional sort of additional value for you in order to complement the information coming from the CIPs together with additional public official sources. But at the beginning, you will not find the exposure of the client as considered one measure of risk as opposed to the salary of the individual. That's simply something like an indicator, which is giving you the possibility to understand which is the overall exposure of the individual. Potential. If the exposure it's a fact, the potential is something that you can judge by having the possibility to understand if a good payer closes a credit and then is ready to get additional credits. Therefore, for you, it's the right moment to get new business. And this is, I guess, very important. The credit bureau is not only meant to provide conservative information, to reject people, but to financially include them. So it has to be seen as a system which is collecting any source of information, which is giving you the possibility to understand how you can be trusting the individual which is coming to you. Even if you don't know him, starting from day one, from that moment on, you will be able to understand which will be the performance of that individual, and understand also which is the ideal profile for you, which are the rules that you have to follow from a credit management point of view. Liquidity. Some of you probably heard about open banking. I'll make a little bit of a comparison between the open banking and the credit bureau. The liquidity in the credit bureau is meant to be the amount of money that has been used by the individual to repay his debts. Simple as such. The open banking is giving you the possibility to have, and this is something that from the regulatory point of view is not yet introduced in the market, embedded finance, it's a topic on a global scale, probably will be the next step of the evolution, but we will see that. But anyway, open banking is giving you the possibility to get transactions from the bank accounts of individuals to understand which is the expenditure behavior of an individual. So you can derive also how much of his monthly expenditure can be dedicated to credit. Behavioral information, if I'm good or not. So that is something that is not static, it's dynamic. Something can change in the life of an individual. It can be creditworthy in a period, and it can deteriorate his situation and maybe not being able to repay his debts in another period. Stupid example, losing the job, it's a fact, or getting sick for whatever reason, facing medical expenditure, which will be limiting the possibility for the individual to repay the debts. So all this information will be tracked in order to give you the profile of the individual and statistically project on the next 12 months the possibility to maintain his reputation. Linked are performing to subjects and companies. So borrower and co-borrower, for example, or individuals which are playing a little bit with the hat. If they have got an SME, maybe their individual credit history is not that good, so they go to the bank as an SME. But we are able to detect that through links between subjects. So the system is very sophisticated and will be identifying possible links between data used by different subjects included in the database. And finally, the extension I was talking about, public sources and official additional information that can be added to the credit bureau to complement the data that you guys will be providing to the credit bureau will be completing the picture. So where we are and where we are going. As a matter of fact, this is an example of what could be the idea of the development. This arrow is giving a little bit of roadmap that we got as a credit bureau. We're going to launch officially, potentially everything early 2026. We're running already the process of collecting information. That information, that sort of stage where we are now, it's considered to be key because soon after we have to do the data consolidation. And to switch on the engine of the credit bureau, we need to be sure the data registered in the credit bureau are good quality, consistent, and complete. In order to grant you, at least when we switch on the engine, an initial stage, because we know that at the beginning we'll not be able to have the maximum level of completeness of information, but a decent number of information which will be allowing you also to get the links between individuals and their credit history over time. So what we are looking at right now is to build up a very solid relationship with the market to understand and learn from you. We are here precisely for that. Learning from you means being able to provide you the maximum level of value and the evolution of the credit bureau over the years. So the first step is the one that puts a footprint. And I guess this is a very important and key moment for Belize in order to evolve and going through the direction the governor was indicating. Growth and stability. Thank you.
Okay, so for the moment that we've all been waiting for, we're opening up the media, open up the floor for questions from the media. Please keep your questions to the Credit Bureau only. The microphone is right there to my left. As is customary, please state your name and media house before asking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Paul Lopez, News 5. I only have a few questions. Governor, you spoke about discriminatory lending practices that has been observed that this system would help to do away with. Can you expand perhaps on some of those practices that you've observed over the years?
Hey, good morning, Paul. So what the Credit Bureau seeks to do, and you've heard it in both presentations, is to provide information. Information that will then allow primarily those who issue credit to be more informed about the profile of that individual or that micro, small, medium enterprise who's applying for some sort of credit. That information then gives that lender some better, a much better assessment on what the repayment capacity or creditworthiness is. With that level of information, you are then, or that lender is able to then say, well, your interest rate or the terms of which I construct your loan is now this because you have given me this level of information. Without that information, what typically happens? So, and this is not to single out any financial institution in here, but we tend to have practices that might just say, hey, 8% across the board for all individuals. And then a select few might be able to get something much lower. And there's nothing wrong with prime customers and having prime lending rates, etc. But what makes it reduces that across the tendency by most individuals. I could be somebody who is not at a certain income level, but I have consistently paid my utility. I have consistently financed a loan from a money lender. And I think that across the board lending rate may not be fair to me because I have practiced good borrowing practices and I've shown that I'm a good borrower. So can I get a better lending rate? And this is what we're trying to introduce typically. So just having more information, allowing you to make better judgment, assess creditworthiness for somebody, and then having that engagement, that conversation between you and the lender.
So essentially, well, or also we could potentially see cheaper borrowing with the removal of certain risks?
Yeah, the Credit Bureau often exerts downward pressure on average lending rates in every jurisdiction where it's implemented.
How does it affect the rates that the central bank establish legally?
So, by law, we have the authority to put ceilings on lending rate, and we also can put a floor on deposit rates. So we've not utilized a lending rate cap in years, and I think early on in the establishment of the central bank, we had done some of that, but there's no cap on lending rates. So that market is open to everyone under the Domestic Banking Financial Institutions Act and also under the Credit Union Act. So we haven't employed any sort of a lending rate cap in years.
Finally, can we get a more practical explanation on how credit scores work so that we better understand it in numbers and value? What does a lowest credit score look like versus a high credit score, and what does each mean?
Did you start thinking about yourself now?
Yeah, of course.
Good.
Yeah, well, actually, just for a second complementing what properly the governor was addressing, I guess that the main difference is that with other credit bureau, the judgment that a lender does, without being finger pointing anybody, is based on subjective evaluation. Whilst when you have got a credit bureau up and running, is objective. So that's one of the main differences, and that's going to have also an effect. This is the experience of what we did in other markets. So I'm not talking about the central bank right now, but looking at what we did in other markets, the natural consequence, apart from the financial inclusion, is also a lower level of risk, which implies the fact that the rates will be lower. That's an economic consequence rather than a decision by the central bank. It's what the effect that the credit bureau brings in a market, brings more competition, brings additional possibility to evaluate even underserved people, and brings also as a consequence the fact that being lower the risk, the number of costs that the lender has to bear in order to run the activity of lending money will be lower. So as a consequence, the rates will be lower. But that's what happened in other markets. We'll see. But I'm pretty sure that this will happen here as well. As far as the credit bureau scoring is concerned, we are building up the credit bureau scoring system after the consolidation of the database will be done. I can tell you how it works in other markets. It's an objective measurement, which means it's based on statistical regression. And actually, the methodology that we use is to compute the credit bureau scoring at the moment of the application or at the time of analysis, which means if you're applying for credit, you will get the score at the moment in which you are applying for credit. So the picture will be live. And we'll be telling you as objective measurement, which is the synthesis of the activity that you have been doing with the rest of the market in terms of credit activity, and which will be the probability for you to repay your debts within 12 months, not more than that. So technically, it's the credit bureau scoring is indicating the probability to get 3 or more unpaid arrears within the 12 months after the application date, technically. But as a matter of fact, the scaling will be done at the moment in which we will have the consolidation of the database. And the scaling is exactly what you were asking about, how it looks like a positive one and how it looks like a negative one. Clearly, there will be a distribution between classes of risk, and the discrimination of the so-called cutoff will be done by the bank, not by us. So what happens is that we give the distribution per se, and then there will be the credit appetite of the bank to judge when they have to put the cutoff. It will never be the credit bureau that will be deciding on behalf of the banks. That's an initiative I will leave to the activity lenders will be doing.
What components are in a system like this that could ease the minds of borrowers who perhaps may look at it as some sort of punishment or being called out for being unable to meet certain, being unable to meet certain payments, for example, especially in marginalized communities?
That's a $1 million question, because as a matter of fact, I was saying it's the beginning of a journey. And it is, as a matter of fact. So even for borrowers, they have to learn how to manage their credit reputation. As of today, they manage their credit reputation with a lender only. They don't, probably, it could be possible that someone is paying one lender and is not paying others. This is something that over time cannot be possible anymore, because otherwise you create a damage to your credit reputation. But this is something like an educational path that we need to do as a market, also to the borrowers. So normally what we do is that we create leaflets, and we train also the tellers in order to train people who's coming, applying for credit, to do whatever they have to do in order to have a clean profile, let's put it this way. Then it's up to the responsibility. I was talking about responsible lending and responsible borrowing. That's a dream as of today, because it will happen once on one side, the lenders will be educated enough to use in the right way the information coming from the credit bureau. On the other way, the borrowers will understand that if they don't pay something, they will be damaged in terms of reputation. So it's a process, but we will do seminars, we will do leaflets, and ultimately, when the credit bureau will have a consolidated database, we can also think about launching customer services, which will allow the individuals to control the credit history. In many countries where we've been working after a period of time when the credit bureau was getting to the maturity, this was done. And this will be a part of the possible evolution that we will have in the future.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just if I could add on that, there are also mechanisms that will deal with past negative information. So let's just say you just graduated out of college or sixth form, whatever, and you're able to get a small loan. You don't want that maybe 15, 20 years ago still impacting your credit score. So CRIF has a methodology for that. I think we're close to finalizing what that will look like, how those negative information will expire, if you will, with some sort of statute of limitations, and how those be incorporated into your score. Because you don't, yes, that's a legitimate concern. So that will be part of our FAQ and part of the sort of educational campaign that will go along with the credit reporting system as we roll out. But another thing to mention on this, the central bank has been for a number of years embarking on a very wide financial inclusion and financial literacy project. All of these things are tying together so we can bring more people into the official system, because there's the responsibility on both sides, responsible lending, responsible borrowing, and the only way you can be responsible is that if you get information and you have the knowledge to participate in the financial system. That's it.
Let me just ask one follow-up question since you said something. Could this in any way affect potentially the bottom line of lenders by preventing borrowers from accessing finances? And I know you said it's sort of left to the discretion of the lender in a sense. So could it affect lenders and their bottom line in any way?
There were recurring themes in presentations which revolve around financial inclusion. We're bringing people more into the financial system to participate. So 4 commercial banks, 8 credit unions, a number of microfinance institutions. You're empowering both sides of that process, the borrower and the lender. So if a borrower says, Bank A, why am I at 9%? I simply can't afford that. What prevents that borrower to now have this credit report, this score to say, I'm sorry, I got to go shop around now. I have something which I can base my application for that now will sort of create that competition in the banking system that we so desperately need. So the answer is no.
We actually, looking at the experience, when we entered, I'm talking about a market which was huge. Then I will ask Enrico to mention the ratios that we've got for the Caribbean. But let me make an example. When we started opening up the credit bureau in Vietnam, 100 million people country, it was only the 5% of the population accessing credit. Today is more than 50% of the population. So yeah, it is possible that somebody will not be able to access the credit bureau, but it's not because of the credit bureau. It's not because of the system that has been put in place. It's because actually the activity of the bank judged that that profile of individual or SMEs was not worth of credit, according to their strategy. This is not because of a system in the background. The system can only help the country to evolve.
Well, I mean, yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. As far as the other Caribbean markets are concerned, I can confirm that at least when it comes to Bahamas, since the credit bureau was established, we managed, or we observed a growth in terms of financial inclusion. I would say a double digit every year. So, I mean, especially what we were mentioning before, I think like together the fact that we will basically switch from a judgmental approach to an objective, I mean, information-based approach. The fact also that, and this is actually an important point I would like to stress, the credit bureau, the fact that the credit bureau, following all the best international, I mean, the best practice at international level, include also not only negative data, which normally gives, let me say, as a result, financial exclusion, but also the positive data. So all what Davide was showing before in terms of all the different, let me say, elements of the credit report, all those benefits and, let me say, things that can be used by the lenders are possible because we have positive data. And as Davide was mentioning before, if we observe the level of, okay, let's say the bad payers, let's call it like this, in the credit bureau, on average, they represent less than 5%. Less than 5%. And usually, when we were discussing also before about how this would affect the interest rate that will be applied, which again, obviously, it's not like a central bank decision, it's rather like a commercial, decision of applying different and more convenient interest rate once you have availability of this information. So this will lead to a situation where by reducing the risk, by reducing the level of NPL that banks will have after some time with the credit bureau, the impact, the negative impact of that 5% will reduce and will give the possibility to lenders to actually, if possible, apply better interest rates. So when we normally enter a new market and we establish a credit bureau, there are a lot of concerns. Will this actually create financial exclusion instead of financial inclusion? Because that's the main, the gut feeling sometimes of the people. There will be like a blacklist. It's not a blacklist. This is the point. It's not a blacklist. And on the medium term, this will be, I mean, the benefit will be clear. Yeah, so it's just a matter of time, and this will be probably clearer once the machine will be, let me say, rolling. Yeah.
Good morning, Jules Vasquez from 7 News. First of all, I'm not clear on who pays. Do the institutions pay to access the service? Does the central bank pay? Is it one of these APSS type situations where the central bank front loads the responsibility and then ends up having to shoulder it for the rest of its institutional life? Just a joke, Governor.
Careful, Mr. Alario is right there. Please, yes. please ask.
Yeah, but so who's paying for the consultancy, the inception, all those stages you showed, and then once it starts operating, who pays as it continues to go?
So we tried to ask the central bank if they wanted to pay, but unfortunately, didn't work out. No, I'm kidding. So as a matter of fact, the relation, the commercial relation will be between the credit bureau and what we call the credit information provider, so the lenders who will be using the system. So there will be a business relation, which also includes a pricing for accessing the credit bureau.
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go on.
But is subscription to it mandatory?
Well, the only thing which is mandatory at the moment is, or at the moment in general, is to submit the data, and that has no cost at all. So what all the CIPs are, the mandated CIPs are required to do is to submit data monthly about their customers, which will be uploaded in our database and available for everybody, for all the lenders to be used by pulling a credit report. And this is obviously, this doesn't bear any cost. The cost will be in case when hopefully as many as possible lenders will start using the credit bureau.
What is if I may interrupt you again, sorry. You cited the Bahamas example. What is the average subscription or uptake rate?
Well, in the Bahamas, there is I would say, it's a complex matrix. What we apply in the Bahamas is basically what we apply pretty much all over the world, and it's based on best practice, which were also shared by the World Bank. And it basically works in a way that lenders who is using the system, they pay, let's say, the more they use, the less they pay. So it's normally based on a sliding scale. So the more reports they pull, the less they pay. You mentioned Bahamas, and I think it's a good point, because Bahamas, let me say, like a countryside size point of view, is similar to Belize.
Right.
And David was mentioning before other markets where we are present that actually are much, much bigger, with like hundreds of millions of people. So obviously, actually the definition of a pricing at the moment when we enter a market is the outcome of a very, let me say, complex.
I think you misunderstood the question. I'll let you try to answer it so that I could find out your business. But the question I was asking, in Bahamas, if there are 100 lenders, how many have subscribed?
Okay, sorry.
What's the rate of uptake in the sector?
Sorry, I thought you meant the pricing.
Yes,
So that's where no.
That's your spirit.
All the banks in all the banks and credit unions are already using the credit bureau, and the money lenders are also. I need to actually check what's the percentage, but a good percentage of money lenders too. And we are currently onboarding also utilities and telcos. So I would say vast majority of the market is using the credit bureau.
If I may complement just one thing, once the credit bureau project is launched in a country, I'm not referring to Belize or to Bahamas or to Jamaica or other Caribbean markets, but in general, who's staying out has got a competitive disadvantage. Because basically what happens is that the vast majority of those ones who understand that a company has no possibility to double check the global picture, even the bad payers will go there. So there is a sort of common beneficial agreement in accessing the credit bureau despite the matter of mandatory or not mandatory, because in some countries we started the business without any law, because not always the regulation is the same. So in some very smart countries, and I guess that, what the central bank did here was smart, to set up a credit bureau and actually also a law which was granting the environment from the legal point of view. Not in all the countries is like that. But even in those countries, when we started the credit bureau, there was a sort of self-influencing process. The more they were accessing, the more those ones who were out were penalized because they were getting, I don't want to say the rubbish, but more or less, those ones who were not worth a credit were going, because of the fact that they knew that they would not detect their bad payments, to those institutions where there was no possibility to have the global picture. So it's a sort of, that's why we talk about a project and not a product. It's something that has to touch base the pillars of the infrastructure of the market itself. If it's done that way, that would be beneficial for everybody. For those ones who will be out, it would be an issue on the long run.
And you just asked me before about how many lenders are using the credit bureau in Bahamas. That's actually one important information, I think, relevant in this case, which is who were the first one who actually started using the credit bureau, which is actually interesting to know. And those banks were the regional banks. I mean, RBC, Scotiabank, CIBC. Why? Because those banks are already using and know perfectly the benefits of credit bureaus in other markets where the credit bureau was already established. So the moment the credit bureau arrived to Bahamas, they were the first one who wanted to use it as much as possible. So they were actually using the credit bureau on all of their credit applications.
No, we know that although Belize is a small and in the global scheme perhaps not very significant, or what Mr. Trump would call a SH country, if you can unravel that, all data has value. There are 400,000 data points here in Belize. Who owns the data? Will you be selling the data in other areas, other countries? Will my credit score in Belize be known in Mexico, the United States, etc.? Is it available for someone to buy? How does that proprietary system work?
I was mentioning before, I don't know if you heard that, but I was mentioning that the credit bureau, at least the concept that Chris has got about the credit bureau, is that it's not a marketing tool at all for us and for the banks and for the lenders in general. So two things will never be possible: to export data without the permission of the individual, and if there is a permission on the individual, is only for one reason, because there is a cross-data exchange agreement with another credit bureau in the region, which means that there will be a solution that connects two credit bureaus in the same region for one reason, because vast majority of the individuals living in one country are actually applying for credit also in another country, and there is a protocol for that. They have to contribute information, so it's like expanding the borders of the country. But there would be the same reciprocity principle. If you want to get information, then you have to provide information. So it's done under a given regulation, not at all for marketing reasons. Inside the market, instead, none of the banks could access the credit bureau in order to steal clients from someone else. The purpose is only permissible purpose. I'm applying for credit, I would like to check the credit bureau. That's just to comfort the idea that data would be sold somewhere else. It's not possible.
Okay.
Sorry. Obviously, if you are a Belizean citizen and you are, going somewhere else in another market, you need to actually apply for a loan. That market, you can still, as the governor mentioned, download your credit report, and just show it to the lender
as a reference.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and then if you could explain if there is a dispute resolution mechanism. We know that in many countries, poor people feel that they are often minoritized or put in a black box by inaccurate information or conclusions in the credit scores. And oftentimes these persons are the ones who have the least access to attorneys or someone who can advance their interests in any tribunal or any mediation. Explain to me, how would a person who feels they have been hard done by a credit score, how would they seek to vindicate or seek redress against this?
In this case, as a common practice, there is a specific dispute process. So the first thing the person should do is to contact CRIF, and CRIF will start actually a dispute process. So for example, if that person was going to Bank A and the Bank A was rejecting the credit application because in the credit report there was let me say, incorrect information, for example, about the person not repaying the loan with Bank B, then our duty will be to contact the Bank B and make sure that that mistake is fixed. So that would basically, let's say, be updated immediately in our database. So from that moment, the credit report will be updated, and the same person will be able to, apply for the loan.
Right, but you know, it's always never that simple, right? There are so many layers. Something came from my father, he had the utility, then I got the house and it was in his. It's always layers of dispute. And in order to cut through these layers, it's complicated. I deal with it a lot.
Okay. So,
so the people have issues with utilities, with tax services. They come to me, and it's a lot of issues they have because of they often have legacy land titles or legacy utility bills, and it's not that easy to solve. How do you, and I know it's a bit too detailed, but how do you help these people without keeping them in that black box? Because they may not have access to be able to write a complaint or to have an attorney.
Well, actually, if we know there is an issue, we can solve it out. There is an entity from now on in Belize which is actually acting, as I said before, to protect both the sides, borrowers and lenders. And borrowers, of course, can come to us to claim there is an unfair reporting coming from a telco, a credit union, an utility, whatever it is. And we will be, through the dispute management system, solving out it on behalf of. There is a difference. If you go as an individual, it's yourself against the institution. If there is an entity which is actually collecting data from all the system and it's supervised by the central bank, going to the telco saying, look, you signed a contract. There is in the contract the fact that you have to provide correct data, otherwise you will be penalized. There is a clear kind of set of rules. In a way, it's sad to be said, but we are running like the orchestrator of the system. So sometimes we'll be the policeman, and sometimes we'll be helping the institutions or the borrowers. So the difference is you against an institution is going to be tough. An entity which is doing this business in a professional way against an institution is going to be different because we cooperate with them. So there is not only a commercial relationship, there is also a relationship which is under the supervision of the central bank. So fines and something like that could happen if they don't do their job.
Good. Yeah, that's satisfactory.
Just to add, so the Credit Reporting Act has clear statutes establishing these procedures or what will be allowed. So take a look at it. I think it's 40 to 43 roughly, and then we'll be issuing regulations as well to sort of make this a little bit tighter and more robust. This dispute resolution mechanism.
Okay, and then I know I've used up a lot of time, Mr. Governor. Real quick, if I could ask, so how much is the quantum that the central bank has paid and will have to continue to pay to keep the system going? Number one, and number two, explain it to us like a baby, so that the public can understand from the macro level how this seeks to aggregate all this information to make credit more accessible for people. I'm first, though.
I'm next to the money person here, so
He hung his head out. He already resigned.
yeah, I'll leave that part for him. But I think my entire remarks were about sort of built around financial stability, financial inclusion, and growth. What we're trying to unclog is how frictions in information affect credit risk and credit risk assessment in the financial system architecture. So the more information, the more equipped a lender is to assess how well Mr. Jules Vasquez can pay his loan off. And if that is available to them, then you or the system ultimately has less vulnerability within it. So there's lower non-performing loans, meaning that Mr. Vasquez's loan is unlikely to go bad. Non-performing loans for the regulator, huge issue, because that is what can eventually lead to bring down the system. So we're looking at financial stability. With this more information, it reduces it changes how we assess risk to ultimately lower what heightened risk level may ultimately exist. Also, it's empowering the borrower now to go towards enter into the financial system and to be an active participant in that. And that's all we're trying to do. The more people get to participate in the financial system, there's a strong correlation with economic growth and financial system participation, and that's what we intend to or hope to achieve with an effective project of the credit reporting system. I hope that sort of helps.
Okay, and it does help.
Just let me attempt. Obviously, I'm not going to give any numbers, but I want to say conceptually, all of these systems cost money, no doubt, right? And if you look back to our reform of our payment system with apps, we were trying to get the private sector to drive this. And obviously that did not happen. And there's a central bank. And so the central bank drove that. And now we can see that there is a model there that can generate revenues. It's the same concept we're using here. We recognize the benefits of a credit reporting system. We've looked at the study. Everywhere there's introduction, there's huge benefits for the entire economy. And the central bank is in a position to drive that. And so we are driving, and then we hope that as the market develops and the model is there, then we see how we can move it away. But that's the general concept.
In other words, the benefits outweigh whatever financial costs that the central bank had laid out.
Yeah. Is that the standard model? We know that maybe these gentlemen don't understand the counterintuitive nature of the marketplace and the dynamics in Belize. It's an upside-down world. And you know what? Obviously, it should be in the bank's interest. I'm sorry, my hand is going that way. Obviously, it should be in the bank's interest to have these systems and the money lenders. It is hard for people to agree on many things in Belize and hard for them to move forward with it. I'm just asking, in Bahamas, for example, is it the central bank that retained you all, or is it the commercial banks?
Before you guys answer, let me just say, Mr. Vasquez, I think the third or fourth slide from CRIF showed the vast number of countries that CRIF has a presence in. I would argue with you, till thy kingdom come, that those countries, some of them, are far worse than what you describe as our upside-down countries. So these guys have experience all over. And so I'll hand it over.
Speak in the main, in general, in the main, what happens?
Actually, I'll leave then Enrico, based on his own experience, to comment on this. But we can mention some extremes, right? We can go from vast majority of the cases, central banks are willing to have a credit reporting system. And actually, in a few days, we will be at the Credit Bureau World Conference in Cancun next week on Monday. And actually, I will be a panelist in order to explain the difference between the credit registries, so the central credit registry, the institution which is collecting within the central bank the data in order to do micro and macro prudential oversight of the system for systemic risk evaluation, and what is the Credit Bureau doing. Vast majority of the cases, especially in undeveloped countries, and Belize is not among them, believe me. I guess the governor, unfortunately, is right. Vast majority of the countries considered to be undeveloped have got a central registry which is providing data to lenders. Okay. With no systems, no protection of data, no quality checks, no score, no value-added services, but still, they think they are doing well. And at the same time, they realized they had a need of a credit bureau, even if with that credit bureau they were fighting at the beginning. Because the matter of keeping the power on data, it's something that scares people. We are not keeping the ownership of data. We are managing data. There is a huge difference. We are not doing that for any of the reasons that can be identified as political reasons or whatever. It is actually an infrastructure which is supporting the financial stability and growth. That's a piece, a small ring, but a key piece of the development of a country, wherever we have been. And I would say that a good bunch of banks, central banks, in the countries that you were looking at in the map, instead did something different, said, we cannot do the business you guys do. You have to do it. We will give you the license for doing it. Because we need an institution which is doing that professionally. So they became the first sponsor of us. And thanks to the collaboration with the central bank, which is key, we started creating more and more value over time. Of course, it's, as I said, it's a journey, so we don't have to expect that we switch on the engine and everything goes in a different direction. It's something that we have to build up together. We have got the experience of doing it, and then we will try to run the roadmap in the right way. But as a matter of fact, we need the collaboration of all the stakeholders at the market level, the central bank, borrowers, and lenders in general.
Okay, and then finally from me, Mr. Governor, shouldn't this go hand in hand with an education campaign? I'm sure it will, but I'm saying that I don't think Belizeans really understand how credit score works. A lot of us still live by the biblical virtue of neither a borrower nor a lender be. However, as my experience with these systems in the US is that the more you owe and the more you can service it reliably over a period of time, your rating goes up. So you have a lot of people, for example, who are fond of paying off their credit card monthly, a great practice. But this system, or the ones I'm familiar with, rewards people who who just pay the minimum or whatever, don't pay off everything on their credit card. So will there be an educational component to explain to people how to, not to game the system, because you can't game the banks, but how to more effectively harness this tool?
Yeah, I don't think your understanding of the methodology to arrive at a score is accurate.
I'm sure it isn't. I need education as well.
David, in his presentation, looked at some of the I guess, parameters, some of the key variables that would be in your score, and then attempted to explain how, well, it's a mathematical statistical regression formula that's used to arrive at the score. So it eliminates that bias to game the system. That's what he was trying to explain. But yes.
We don't know what mathematical, I heard it, but I don't know what mathematical regression means.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
very average.
so part of the educational campaign is definitely then an elaboration of what the variables are in considering or what would be part of your report. And there was a screen of all the things that would have been considered. And so that helps to inform the general public of what would be considered or delivered when there is a application for a loan, wherever. And again, I have to say, one of the cries that we've heard quite frequently from commercial banks and credit unions, and also now money lenders, is central bank being a little bit more aggressive on its financial literacy campaign, and we will do that to not complement, because we're already on this project, but to have something that we will always be doing financial literacy, but it has to be that we get after that 30% that is unbanked, and we have a more dynamic financial system through financial literacy. And I'm not sure if David and the others want to add on how the methodology goes.
Yeah, just to complement what the governor said, as a matter of fact, in all the markets where we operate at Credit Bureau, we also do like public outreach. We organize seminars, talk show. We try to be on all the possible, let me say, right spots to actually do public awareness. I remember when we started in Bahamas, we didn't have somebody there locally yet. So me and Davide were actually doing like talk show at 2 in the morning.
During the COVID. That's why we could not travel, and we were compelled.
Yeah. So this will be part of the of our activity also here in Belize. Hopefully not 2 in the morning, but because we will also our local team doing this together with us. But one thing which appeared to be true in the Bahamas, and that it works the same in all the markets where we've been so far, is that we can do all the, let's say, workshops, seminars, talk show, but imagine the Belizean, the taxi driver, listening to the radio and listening to, the CRIF, the new Credit Bureau project here. He's just like, he's just hearing something, and he will forget the second after.
Yeah.
So in our experience, the real, it's like when you do like online shopping, you need to create the right, point of sales to actually conquer that customer. So in the right process, in the digital process. So the same is for real public awareness. The moment when the person will have the highest level of attention will be the moment when his own interest and ability to access to credit will be impacted, which is the moment he's asking for credit. So the kind of activity that we will do will be both as a public outreach, so seminars, but also we will try to do as much as possible joint action with the banks, with the lenders, in order to be able to actually deliver the right message to the consumer at the moment of the credit application, because that's the moment when the person has the highest attention. So what is a credit bureau? Why? What is in the credit report? What are the main, let's say, factors that impact on the credit score? And obviously, we don't want, the banks tellers to be credit bureau, black belt. We are not asking for that. At the moment when the consumer needs additional information, obviously they can be redirected to us, and we will be more than happy to give additional information and do more public awareness on the credit bureau topic. Yeah.
There is one case, if I can just mentioning something which is, I promise I will not talk about statistics and mathematics. I'm just giving an example. But during the 2009 crisis in Europe, there was one country, actually CRIF doesn't build up credit bureau scoring only for our credit bureaus. We also do for third-party credit bureaus. because they've been asked, we have been asked to produce the credit bureau scoring according to the experience that we matured over the years. And there are more or less an extra 10, 15 credit bureaus which are using our credit bureau scoring system. But in Greece, the credit bureau there, which was already managed by someone else, Tiresias, used our credit bureau scoring. They actually launched that in 2008, and 2009, the crisis came. Which was the consequence? This is to give you the value of the credit bureau scoring in terms of example. The consequence was that over time, the dynamic of the risk of their portfolio changed so quickly that at a given point in time, they abandoned completely the internal scoring system and they started using, for a matter of stability, only the credit bureau scoring. And that saved the system. So what I'm presenting now is an extreme, because that was during a crisis period. That was something that was done on purpose in order to save the risk of banks during a very exceptional moment. But that gives you the measure of how having an objective tool at the market level will be considered a value over time. Because the stability of the credit bureau scoring is given by the fact that we will never consider the credit policies of all the lenders. We will only consider facts as objective as possible. And this will give the measure of how individuals also during a crisis were able to apply for credit and get credit if they were considered good payers, thanks to the credit bureau scoring. So without talking about the details of it, that gives you the idea of how important could be such a project. Even in a project of a credit bureau, such a project is an important component in order to give an objective statistical measurement to the risk at the market level.
I'll hear the mother one. Thank you.
Good morning, Giovanni O'Brien from XTV and Creme Radio. We know in Belize we have this culture of whenever we're applying for something, we are the ones to provide the copies of this and that and the other. Is there anything in place that would prevent the lenders from expecting the applicants to provide their credit report instead of them subscribing to the service?
I didn't get the question in full, sorry about that.
So instead of the lending institution subscribing to the credit system, they expect the applicants of a loan or whatever it is to be the ones to provide their own credit report.
Oh, okay. That gives me the possibility to make a clear explanation about the difference between, because what you're talking about is the US system. That doesn't work for us the same way. Because actually, I was already mentioning the fact that the credit scoring and the credit report will be created and generated at the time of application, but not by the individual. So the individual cannot go around with a credit license by saying, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, because that's valid for the moment in which it produces at time of analysis, but it's not valid forever. So the day after he produced the credit report by asking, as the governor was saying, once a year, he could go with that, but that doesn't give him the right to go there and to object to the lender. Look, I'm reported as good. You're telling me I'm bad. What's the problem? Because the system that the lenders will be using will go at the time of the application to the credit bureau. So the level of information he will get, the lender will get at that moment in time, will be the proven fact that he's a good payer or not. It cannot be possible to go there and, but I give you also an extra element. Normally, lenders, when they get used to have the credit report, will put the synthetic measurement, the scoring, or the key elements of the credit report in their own systems to generate a decision which goes yes, no, referral. So that's not something that the individual can do on behalf of the lender. That's a right of the lender to judge if he can grant credit to someone or not.
What if the lender accepts that? I'm saying that instead of they paying for the service, they rather the applicants provide their own report. I mean, some not all the institutions here follow the book
Where do they get the report, their own report?
from the applicants. If they choose, well, you said that
Yeah, but what the
the
applicant is
individual,
getting the report.
well, aren't we able to access our own credit score?
Once again, the point is that the policies of lenders will be giving them the right to access the credit bureau at the time of application in order to check if the information that the consumer or the SMEs is reporting there is still valid or not. So the credit report is not lasting forever. It's not a credit license. It's something that lasts for the moment in which you ask it, unless something changed in your credit history. But that has to be checked by the lender. It's legitimate.
David, let me ask maybe differently. If there's ever a need where the borrower needs to present
No.
the credit
No.
report, what's the position?
There is no need to report their own credit report exactly for the reason I was explaining, because through the system, the lender will be allowed to access, because of the permissible purpose of the applicant, to the credit bureau with the data of the applicant at time of application. So that's a live check inquiry, which will be done by the lender in order to grant credit and decide about granting credit according to his own policies.
But you're speaking on those that are subscribed to the service. What about the lenders that don't? And they would be the one who would still accept or you providing your own report. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay, you can do that, but but still, it's a matter of decision of the bank if accepting or not. I would never do that. As you know, with the culture of the credit managers we've got in terms of CRIF, we would never do that because who knows if in the meanwhile that you reported that information, you went for shopping, asking credit to 10 different institutions. How can you rely on that? That is not reported. If you go live to the system, that will be done. So this might be the moment in which the institution will understand that they have to join the credit bureau.
And then, Governor, you mentioned that some institutions are not mandatory to share their data, towards the system. Are you able to say if they have been approached, and if so, which ones have agreed and which ones have decided not to participate?
So I think we've had robust consultation sessions. I'll probably hand it over to Keisha or manager to say where we are with that.
So the mandatory credit information providers are the domestic banks, the credit unions, and the money lenders. And the non-mandatory are the utility companies, the electric companies, DFC, and other type of borrowers, other type of institutions that lend. So we've had consultation with all the public utility companies, the insurance companies, and whatever company provides some type of lending, we've had consultation with them. And like we said, it's non-mandatory, but once the credit bureau is in place, then they will see how it can benefit them to provide information to the credit bureau. Because the only way you can get information on a customer is if you provide information, so you can get information on that person.
But can you say if any have agreed to submit data?
Well, it's the non-mandatory.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keisha.
Non-mandatory entities who wanted or they were excited and willing to submit information. So they were just asking if there are any other utility companies, telcos, but I know that you shared that BTL for sure was one who was willing to share data.
We didn't have so far any other additional contact with other non-mandatory so far. We know that in general there is an interest, but we didn't.
All right, thanks. Somebody was boycotting me. So as I said, we didn't have any other additional contact with non-mandatory, let's say, CIPs. But we are planning actually to start soon.
Yeah, just to add to that, it will be phased in, so they're onboarding credit lending institutions first, and then they would attack or get on board the utility companies later.
So just a quick thing to add, right? That's the reason why they are non-mandatory. But the hope is that once they see the benefits of the system, then they realize that for them to get information from the system, then they should join and will join, we believe, in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Lady, gentlemen, good morning. So, in retrospect to this entire conversation, what Belizeans, the consumers, are hearing is technically another fee added on to their daily operations or weekly or monthly operations when it comes to accessing future credit. Yes? No? Love FM, Raphael Roberts.
No.
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 So when they go and access a loan or so forth, they don't have to pay for that credit report to be submitted to their future creditor. Yes? No?
Well.
Yes? No? Sorry.
Well, I wish, I won't put Mr. Alario on the spot, but banks tend to find some way of pricing and credit unions pricing service. What is the intention here is...
Intention.
Yeah.
Not enforcement or...
Yeah.
It's just intentions.
Yeah. So ultimately, it will be negligible if there's anything that is attached or none at all.
And I asked this question because you brought up an important, Governor, you said that there's a 30% additional persons that are not banking, and you want to try to squish that as much as possible. This would be another primary example of why people choose not to bank, because it's always a layer of payments, fees. Like, for instance, having with a said bank with multiple, you actually have a fee if you don't use that account for a certain amount of time. So if you're not using the service, why are you still charged for it? You understand? So this is where that gap of 30% of the populations could not be using banking. You understand? So again, the fees.
Excellent point. We understand what the barriers are, and we're trying to address that in our financial literacy project. There are numerous from infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure, that's a huge one. AML CFT, which is a requirement of the outside world on our country. Of course, fees play a role as well. But financial literacy, having knowledge, is also a big part of that. And how we formalize our economy away or reduce the size of our informal economy, that's another huge part. We all know that a big portion of our society still engages in cash and find it a lot more comfortable to engage in cash. So there are many reasons for this.
Right. If I can compliment, I'm not talking about Belize because, I haven't got a crystal ball. So, unfortunately, because otherwise it would have been much easier.
That's okay.
But I can tell you what happened in other markets. The portion of the population which was not allowed to access credit actually has been introduced in the banking sector, but not only the banking, the lending sector, thanks to the fact that they have been able to be considered like reliable in terms of behavior, okay? And over time, it's not black and white, it's not yes and no, but over time the system changes and goes towards a direction in which the rates will go down. The access to credit will be easier, and people who has got a possibility to demonstrate that they're regularly paying, for example, the telco bill or the utility bill, will be considered to be eligible for credit. Then at that point in time, their condition as individual will change, because thanks to credit, they will evolve their position. And as a matter of fact, they will improve their position. Don't think about only one side. Also think about the other side. The people that actually has got the right to access credit, but hasn't got the means to access credit, will be allowed to do, thanks to the fact that they will be able to be considered worth the credit. Because it's a matter of behavior. It's not a matter of how can you pay, because the little you can pay, but actually you will be worth for credit if you have got a behavior which demonstrates that you're worth for credit.
And that comes to my next point. We're looking at the largest model that there is, the United States. They have credit system. Belize is now moving to that direction. For all of the newcomers, high schoolers, finishing up and jumping into corporate Belize, how will this accommodate them? Because according to the United States credit system, if you have no credit system, you have no lending power, you have no renting ability, you have no access to a credit card. How does this help?
US is one model.
One, but Belize in a whole tends to
but
subject itself to that.
That's
model.
fine, but the model we are applying is not a US-based one. Actually, what we are doing is what we did in many different countries, despite the fact that we did in Europe, but we did even in Asia, in Africa. So it's not limited to one single geography. It's a concept. And the concept that we are applying actually is going towards the direction of saying, if you're accessing credit, and you will be considered right. There is also the rule in the systems where we are working that if you haven't got credit, you might be considered not worth a credit. This is up to the banks, up to the lenders. This is not up to the credit bureau to decide, as I was saying before. But, and there is a but, if you once again are able to demonstrate, and this is an evidence coming from all the markets where we developed credit bureaus, if you are able to demonstrate that you're worth for credit, you will be accepted by the lending market itself. So it's just a matter of creating a reputation over time. One thing, I was talking about the license to credit, which is basically a US concept. This will not be applied here. There is also another reason for that. If you go to US, for example, and you've got your score, and you score A, you're good for credit.
Yeah, 800.
Yeah, but that lasts for the moment in which you compute. And instead you go around by saying, I'm a good scorer, so I can be worth the credit. That's not going to be something that will happen here, not because we don't want to, but because the model that we are applying will be granting the possibility for people to access credit and to be judged at the moment in which they are applying for credit. So that's the freshest level of information reported. And the fact that utilities, telcos are going to join, they will, because they did in all the markets where we've been developing credit bureaus, and they've got a legitimate interest. Even their model, business model, is changing over time. If you think about broadcasting, for example, services, or devices that they are selling, telcos are selling to individuals or companies, they are paid on an installment basis. So they are very similar to normal credit. So this is changing a little bit. There is an interest from their point of view to enter the credit bureau in order to understand whom to grant credit or not.
Yeah, because, and I'm asking these questions because this is the youth population. As a former youth officer, I'm looking out for the best interest of what I've served, this has been always a situation. Youth cannot access a job because they don't have the experience. So how will they be able to develop that? Same question applies to this. How will they be able to access credit if they don't have credit and nobody wants to give them credit? You understand? So, I mean, you can't bond with X amount of experience and you will not be able to bond with a credit score or a credit. Okay, you have to build towards it, right? So that's why I asked the question. Also, when it comes to the highly illegal renting that is happening in the country where security deposits and so forth are asked, will that be able to quell this 1945 law, finally be updated, and will this be able to charter a new way for renters? Because it is illegal technically to ask for a security deposit and or future payment without, so will this quell that situation? A part of the credit system.
Sir.
Can I
yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Can I answer with one question? How it is possible in a market in which, at the beginning, when we started the credit bureau, lenders were not making inquiries to the credit bureau because they said, we don't need it. We can give money to those ones who bring gold to us as a guarantee. How it is possible that today the 60% of the population accesses credit?
Well, because
I mean, they
of
had
where they
no
are.
reputation
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, because you're looking at the system from an entire, the perspective of every single Belizean, and not just for the ones who already have 2 years, 3 years, 4 years working experience, who have already borrowed a loan, who have already vested in that era. You're looking at the get-go of quelling that 30% gap for banking. You're looking at the new generations, youth that are coming up,
Correct.
and you're also looking at the key word there that the governor said was consumer protection.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
you're looking at.
One simple answer. If I'm an 18 years old guy and I would like to get credit, I can have a guarantor. Simple. I can have a co-borrower. I can demonstrate that anyway I've got a mobile and I had the possibility to pay my bills. Then that's the beginning of the story. Of course, little by little. I mean, the credit you're allowed to access to will be bigger and bigger as long as you go. Because if you build up your reputation over time and you will pay the small amount, then you will pay a little bit bigger amount, and then you can get to the mortgage, because then maybe you will get a job and you will be able to repay your debts in a proper way, demonstrating that regardless the fact that you had a salary, you were responsible. It's the profile that counts. It's not only the basis of the salary, because at the beginning, to enter, you need an help. And that's no doubts. At the beginning, you need an help. Yes. But that's what happens in all the markets where people which has no right to access credit at the beginning, they will be accessing credit this way.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much for your stimulating questions. I would like to turn the floor over now to the Manager of Supervision to provide the closing remarks.
Thank you all for joining us today, both in person and virtually, and for your attention and active engagement throughout this important session. As we reflect on the journey that commenced in 2014, it is clear that the establishment of Belize's credit reporting system represents a pivotal milestone in the transformation of Belize's financial infrastructure. The recent licensing of CRIF Information Services Belize Limited as Belize's first credit bureau signifies the transition from vision to implementation, marking the start of a new era for credit reporting in Belize. This initiative will bring about far-reaching benefits to both individuals and businesses by enhancing transparency, improving access to credit, and fostering responsible lending practices, ultimately empowering consumers and financial institutions. This achievement is the result of sustained collaboration and commitment. The Government of Belize, Central Bank, financial institutions, and local and international partners have all played instrumental roles in shaping a robust legal and institutional framework that supports the effective operation of the credit reporting system and the licensing of a reputable credit bureau. Looking ahead, our collective focus will turn toward the effective operationalization of the credit bureau. In the coming months, we will work closely with the credit bureau, credit information providers, and other stakeholders to ensure a smooth onboarding process, upholding high standards for data quality and reliability, and integrate credit reporting seamlessly into lending practices. These efforts will be supported by continued engagement, capacity building, and clear regulatory oversight to ensure the system delivers on its intended objectives. This milestone underscores the central bank's enduring commitment to its mission to promote the stability of monetary and financial systems for the well-being of Belize. It also reflects our shared vision of a modernized financial system that empowers individuals, strengthens institutions, supports inclusion, and contributes to the long-term prosperity of Belize. To all our partners, thank you for your dedication and contributions. Let us move forward with confidence, united in purpose, and determined to build a financial system that serves every Belizean. Together, we are not just building infrastructure, we are building trust, opportunity, and prosperity. Thank you once again for your participation and commitment. With that, I formally close today's session. Thank you.
As is customary, everyone, we have refreshments at the back. And just note that the presentation will be provided to you as well.